Hello, and welcome to another episode of Give Yourself Some Leeway with me, your host, Eugene Lee. What does it truly mean to be a leader in today's workplace? Today, I am joined by Stephen Morris, retired Army senior leader turned CEO and corporate coach at Renowned Leadership. Stephen and I talk about what it takes to be a leader in today's workplace, how to distinguish between leadership and management, and how to better serve, influence, and inspire one another. As always, you can join the conversation over at giveyourselfsomeleeway.com. You can book in a call, you can reach out to me on social media at eugene.leeway, or shoot me an email at eugene@leeway.ie. Thank you, and I really hope you enjoy today's episode on leadership with Stephen Morris. Stephen, welcome to Give Yourself Some Leeway. I just have to take a moment to acknowledge that you got up at 3:30 a.m. to join this podcast. So I was wondering why you booked such an early time slot, but kudos for getting up so early and being so disciplined.
Thanks, man. Yeah, like I was saying, I usually get up at 4 anyway, so I had to get up a little bit earlier. Not a big deal.
Stephen, as a leader, what drives you to do what you do? What is the driving passion behind being a leader in today's world?
Um, that's a loaded question. I would say the biggest thing for me is that my purpose in life is to positively influence as many people as I possibly can. So, breaking that down is I want to have a positive impact on someone's life. And whenever I'm dead and gone, I want my wake to be full of people remembering, what I did for them, what I brought to what value I brought to their life. So, whenever I think about that, that means I have to lead the example. So my integrity has to be fully intact. Um, I have to always put other people above myself and execute as a servant leader rather than a manager. So that's really where my passion for leadership comes from. Is I understand one where everyone is a leader, whether you are a 18-year-old hourly employee or you're the CEO of a company. Everyone is a leader. And the reason I say that is because everyone has influence on someone else, which is the definition of what leadership is. So, from that standpoint, I'm a leader of my family. I'm a leader of my inner circle of friends. I'm a leader of my company. So I have to every day I have to approach my life as um, the president, right? Everyone is looking at me. Literally, not the world's not. I understand that, but literally, everyone in my sphere of influence is looking at me to be the best I possibly can be that day. And when you think of it that way, it really at least it motivates me to really step up and drive harder than most people do.
That is awesome. So, like, I always find when it comes to leadership, there just seems to be a lot of distortion around what leadership really means in today's workplace. People confuse it with management styles and they see it as a kind of the almighty ruler or everyone respect my authority. So, what do you believe are the key challenges behind trying to be a leader in today's workplace?
Oh man, there are so many. Um, Key challenges. I think the first thing you kind of already said, and that is today's society creates great managers, right? But I don't know if it's social media or remote work or what the cause is, but we're slowly losing our ability to lead. And the reason I say that is because to me, leadership is the personal touch, right? Managing is the numbers, leadership is the people, right? And we're losing our ability to have that people aspect. And as far as my style of leadership, to me, there's only one style that is effective and is even worth paying attention to, and that's servant leadership. Because servant leadership puts your people first. It puts, everything above your gain. And it's with the understanding, as long as you're doing the right thing at the right time with the right people, you're going to benefit in the long run. I think in today's society, we're so me focused and we're so win now focused. Like we don't have the patience for the long game, for the slow burn, if you will. So that's I think that's probably the single biggest challenge I see is we want it now. We want people's respect now. We want people, yeah, yeah. Pull at that thread for a minute. We want people's respect now. What have you done to earn their respect? Do you have you committed the hours and hours and weeks and months to learning your people to earn their respect? One of my people that I was leading when I was in the military, um, his wife's grandma, I think, died, and I sent home a little handwritten note to her, just telling her I was sorry for her loss. Thoughts and prayers are with her family, yada yada yada. Simple, like $2 on a card, handwritten, wrote a note. That that almost brought a fully grown man, a soldier, to tears because he saw the effect it had on his wife. Right, that is servant leadership because it put someone else in front of me. It put someone that I didn't really know in front of me, and that allowed me to lead her husband better. So whenever you're facing the challenges of today, I think it's really the people piece that we're losing. Leadership is all about the people, and it's never ever about you. Did I answer your question?
That definitely answered my question. Like the reason I bring it up is because I was recently job searching, and in one of my interviews, it was a leadership role. And one of the questions that was posed to me by the interviewer was, what are the key traits to look for in a leader to manage and motivate a team? And straight up, I knew that they were probably looking for management skills, because they said, what are the key traits of a leader
Mhm.
to manage a team? So, before I give my answer, I'd like to know what your answer would be as to what are the key traits, the top three traits you'd look for in a leader.
Top three traits to look for in a leader. I would say first and foremost is, does that leader uh have a bookshelf full of books in their office? What is their stance on personal development, on reading, on learning? Because a leader never stops learning. A leader is always learning. There are new skills, there are new soft skills, there are new um personal practices that a leader needs to learn. So what does that look like for them? The second thing I would say, we were talking about it actually before we started recording, and that is physical fitness. Do they take pride in the way they look? Are they good? Are they putting in the work on themselves, physically and mentally, to make themselves the best possible leader? And then, man, third one's that's a hard one. So many to pick from. I would say third would be what is their work ethic? How can their work ethic be articulated? Meaning, can you sit there and define what it is that you do every single day to help your team? What is your work ethic? I find far too often we think leadership means we work less, but actually, a good leader is going to work far more, far harder, far longer. than any of his team members or his or her team members. So I would say those are my key things: education, physical fitness, and work ethic.
That's brilliant. What I love about your first two, education and physical fitness, the emphasis is on the leader showing up for themselves first so that they can serve their team at their utmost potential. That by first educating yourself
Mhm.
and taking the time for your own physical fitness so that you have that energy reserve, you have that endurance, you have that stamina to take on whatever comes at you that day, to take on um whatever workload comes to your team, that you can take a step back and be like, okay, let's think through this. Let's work on this as a team. And I think another element of that physical fitness is that it usually fosters a sense of community, whether it's a group class or maybe it's someone who likes enjoying working out solo, and that may help them when they're in a situation where they get landed under severe pressure and they have to take full accountability as a leader. So I think it works twofold that way. But I like that you emphasize education, physical fitness, and having that steadfast work ethic, knowing where your boundaries are as well, setting boundaries. So I do love that. When I was posed a question, I looked for what are the key traits that I would use as leader myself, and what are the key traits that I look for in a leader to influence me. And first off was communication. If a leader can't communicate the visions or the goals of the project or the company or the team's development, if they can't articulate and communicate it clearly between team members, then they're never going to be able to coordinate a team to work together or influence them towards a similar goal. The second was empathy. I think that comes a lot into in terms of having personal relationships with your team and taking that time to develop that trust and relationships and recognize every team member as an individual, not just a number, towards an end result. And finally, adaptability, that circumstances change, situations change, everyone has different abilities on the team. And you can't treat them all as, oh, you're just another person on the team, do the same task as that person if they're not here. It's like, no, people have different strengths and weaknesses. We have to recognize those and play them to their strengths, or maybe help them to develop their weaknesses into strengths. So it was communication, empathy, and adaptability. And what I found interesting when I was in that interview, they were like, oh, what we were looking for was time management, decision making. And I was like, okay, they're management skills. They're not so much leadership skills. I was like, they're great if you're looking for someone to manage a team and help them manage towards an end result, but that's not going to influence a team or inspire them towards your desired goal. It's not going to help the team to, it's not going to give the team sustained motivation and to develop that team towards completing future projects or wanting to work together on future projects or to respect you as their leader or as their manager. You need to have those core leadership traits to develop those personal relationships with your team members in the first place. So that's I loved your answer. Again, emphasizing your personal self development so that you can show up at your best to serve others.
Yeah, and so something you said is, obviously communication. One, so I agree that communication is probably the single most important skill that a leader has. I feel like it's overused. Like, oh well, he failed. He's a horrible communicator, or he's a like everybody talks about communication, and it's kind of annoying now. That horse has been beat to death. But I mean, you're absolutely right. That is the single most important skill you need to be developing is your communication, because it doesn't matter how awesome of a vision you have and how well you understand your mission. If you can't articulate it, it's absolutely useless. But what I really love about what you said is you kind of put an emphasis on rather than uh oh, what's the word? Oh shoot, it was right there. You said it. Rather than ah, I hate it when that happens. Like literally, my ADHD just grabbed a hold of me and started shaking me, and I totally lost the word. Um, so there are two areas you can operate from, and one is influence, and the other is influence and inspiration, and the other is oh, people are all say it all the time. You know, I want to blank my like for my people. I want to push them to go further. Um, oh, good grief. Dang it. So this is actually something I got into an argument with the CEO of a rather large company last night. She was talking about how great leaders always can uh, push their people further, right? And they do that through encouragement. And um, I made the argument that I would rather inspire, because you can encourage all you want, and you can push all you want, but inspiration is real, right? Motivate. That's the word. Motivation. Good grief. I apologize to everybody. I don't know how I forgot that word. Anyway, there is such thing as false motivation, right? And false motivation can only take you so far. Yeah, I'm motivated. It's 3:30 in the morning, right? And I'm motivated. After this is done, my motivation is gonna go because I'm done and I don't need to be motivated anymore. But if I'm inspired, right? If you inspire me, Eugene, that's gonna carry all day. Because even when I get tired, I'm like, man, what would Eugene be doing right now? What does he expect of me? What should I expect of myself? So that carries through. So rather than motivate and encourage, you should inspire. Inspire is always going to carry you further than motivation will. Motivation is a lie. Inspiration is true. So whenever I'm leading my teams, I'm always focused on how am I showing up for them and how am I inspiring them to complete the vision and the mission. Sorry that took me so long to get there.
We got there in the end. That's all that matters. But yeah, exactly. As you said, encouraging, motivating. And one thing that always gets in my goat is the motivators that some companies use. They're like, oh, we'll motivate them with a gift card, an employee of the month gift card that 1 out of 1,000 employees is going to get if they do their job good enough. And it's like, that's not really going to motivate people. That's pretty much like a lottery win, and it's probably the manager's pet that's going to get that voucher or gift card anyway. So that's not going to motivate people. Or there was there was a great example I came across for motivating um presenteeism to stop people taking sick leave. And it was that for anyone who has less than 5% absenteeism by the end of the year, they get a €100 gift card. But to take 1 day's sick day, for a lot of people who were taking those sick days, it was because their kids were sick and they couldn't get childcare. And basically, to get childcare on one of those days would cost about 150 euro anyway. So
Mm.
one sick day was worth about 150 euro, and not taking any sick days for the year was worth a 100 euro gift card. And um, it was addressed that it was like, look, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't motivate anyone to work towards taking less sick days. If anything, it encourages them. Oh, I took one sick day. Now I've gone over my 5% of sick days, whether it was I was sick or whether I need to take care of my kids. Now I might as well take as many sick days as I want because it's worth more to me than that €100 gift card. And
Mhm.
it actually had the opposite effect of what they were trying to do. Rather than look at what was the cause of all the sick days and try to accommodate, okay, how can we maybe give them a flexible work schedule if such an event occurs that maybe can be managed at manager's discretion, rather than penalize the people who are taking more sick days because they need to take care of their family, and give gift cards to all the people who weren't taking those sick days anyway. It kind of just created a divide. It was like, okay, you're going to reward the people who didn't need those sick days in the first place and they're turning up anyway. And you're going to victimize the people who are looking for the help, who are looking for the help around taking care of their kids, taking care, they need more sick days, or maybe they just need a little bit more help, a more flexible schedule. And it really got on my nerves at the time. I was like, why are we not looking at the cause of this absenteeism and instead only trying to address one symptom of it? And you're not, it wasn't even a matter of motivation at the end of the day. It was like, okay, let's just put a band-aid on that problem. It looks like we're dealing with it, but we're really not. And let's move on. And instead of coming from a place of inspiration or influence, being like, look, let's work together on this. Let's come up with a solution that works for everyone. Or maybe there's individualized cases where it might be different. And let's look at those too. And let's accommodate people to a certain extent. Not that it will be taken advantage of, because of course at the end of the day we have to reach our bottom line too for this to be efficient. But how can we meet people halfway and see where they're coming from and work on their level so that we can see eye to eye, rather than a push from the top down, being like, you're either here or you're not, you're getting a gift card or you're not.
Mhm. You know,
Uh,
it's funny you say that, if I can interrupt you a
yeah, of
second.
course.
So the United States military has many, many faults, don't get me wrong, but it is one of the most efficient corporations in the world when it comes to leadership and people management. And the reason is so that the circumstance you just described, where people are sick or the people's kids are sick and they're needing time off, that gets handled by the lowest level possible. So maybe, maybe not a team leader would handle that, maybe a section leader would handle that, but the company commander is not handling that, and the battalion commander is not handling that. That it gets handled on the lowest level possible. And in my corporate experience, I've found that companies that model that, that encourage their leaders to handle things as absolutely low as possible, end up being far more successful, because exactly what you said, they aren't putting corporate band-aids on things. Corporate band-aids never fix anything. They always make things worse. And your example is great of that, because now one group, the group that is already doing the thing, they get rewarded, and the group that actually needs the help, they get ostracized. And so now they're just ticked off. And this group over here, they don't care anyway because they were showing up to work and an extra €100, woo. Like they don't care. So no one's happy, and one group is marginalized. It makes everything absolutely worse. However, if you would flip that and make it where your team leaders or your section leaders are handling it at the bottom level, they get to go on an individual basis. And Johnny is like, hey, my kid's got COVID or the flu or whatever. And then it's like, oh, okay, take the time you need. Don't worry about points or whatever absentee system you have. Don't worry about that. I'll take care of that. You go take care of your family. So one, that's building trust in that leader, and two, that 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 employee is going to have so much more loyalty to the company as a whole because now the company is taking care of them. Even though it's that individual leader that's taking care of them, they're not going to see that. They're going to, I mean, they'll see that to an extent, but as a whole, they're going to see the entire entity as what is taking care of them. And they're going to become extremely loyal to that entity. So, if there is any CEO or large company listening, I encourage you to empower your leaders. Stop trying to corporatize everything and let your leaders really do their job and handle things at the lowest level possible.
Yeah, like, and another thing, even stemming from that one point, like around sick days, and again, marginalizing people who probably need those sick days more than others, or people who are probably just looking for a more flexible work routine to be like, look, I am really run down and I need a better work-life balance here. And they're being ostracized or marginalized, being like, no, you need to be as productive as everyone else. And as a result, when it comes to sick days, there's been people who had like vomiting bugs coming to work anyway because they can't afford to take another sick day because it's going to affect their absenteeism.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to, if they're taking a sick day, they need to get a doctor's note. But to get that doctor's note, it might cost 60 or 70 euro. And it's like, okay, is there like that doctor's note isn't worth that 100 euro gift card I'm going to get in 12 months' time? And it seemed like a slap of a wet fish more than an actual motivator. It was like they were putting something in place as a motivator, but it didn't offer any value at all to the employee. And not that they shouldn't be grateful for a 100 euro gift voucher, but it was that it didn't offer them any way in terms of spending more time with their family or taking pressure off their work life balance in terms of their home life or helping them with their personal development or their personal growth. It was we're sticking a label on it. This is a reward that you can get if you work towards it, and yeah, let's tick that box rather
Right.
than actually looking at how can we help our employees, how can we treat them as part of the team and help them to grow towards completing a goal within this company.
Right. Absolutely. And like I said, like that, excuse me, what you're talking about is best handled at the lowest level possible, like we already talked about. And, when it comes the gift voucher, that would have been a good second and third place reward. Like you do this thing and you get this. But, if you win this challenge or do X, then we are going to provide you with, you know, this this enrichment trip, this long weekend where you get to go. Um, maybe it's a spa or something where you can go relax and meditate and get yourself healthy. Or maybe it's a retreat for you and your spouse if you have one, or something like something that helps you grow. I've found that if I want to implement a reward system, which is great because as humans we're naturally competitive, right? We naturally want to win things. We naturally want to compete with each other, and that's good. That's normal when it's done in a healthy way. I've found that personal growth is always the best motivator. When yeah, sure, 100 euro, okay, but something that's going to last the rest of your life, as in, you go here, you can learn proper meditation, for example. That's something that's going to benefit me long after I leave this company. Heck yeah, I want to go do that. Like, heck, I want that free opportunity. Sure. or maybe it's take your kids to a water park or a theme park. Oh man, they're these memories are going to last a lifetime. Yeah, I want to go do that. So, and that's going to really push me um to excel. The second and third place, yeah, you get a little bit of this, but the winner really gets to improve themselves, and that's always been something that affects the personal development is always far superior when it comes to motivating than any cash prize or material prize.
Yeah, I think even stemming from that, rather than the reward system, it's looking at the work-life balance, where people want to spend more time with their family, or maybe they want to spend more time on the social level with their colleagues.
Hmm.
Maybe they just want that personal connection where they're being treated as an employee and they want to be recognized as Stephen, as Eugene, as John, as Jim. They want to be
Right.
recognized on a personal level and be like, oh, I'm not just a number here. I, I I am being appreciated and recognized for the work that I do and the time that I dedicate here, rather than being told you're being paid a salary here, you're being paid to put in the work within these hours, get it done, uh, come in, clock out, leave. Um, it's it's the personal touch. I think we've mentioned that a lot. What do you feel are the is it the size of the company? Is it company culture? Is it are there driving factors that you feel behind the depersonalization of leadership and management styles?
Yeah, 100% its size. Um, when it comes to corporate culture, or company culture, it is all relative to the size of the company. And I think the problem is that as a company grows, they feel that they lose command and control the larger they get. So they have to put all these corporate policies in place to maintain command and control and to avoid getting sued ultimately. Um, I feel, and I don't have science to back this up, this is just my opinion. I feel that one, if you're a large entity, you're going to get sued no matter what you do. It's just going to happen. So accept it and deal with it. But two, at least here in the United States, I know Europe has different lawsuit laws, but here in the United States, if you're a large company, if you're a company in general, like you're going to get sued. So just accept it. But from a company standpoint, if you if you always maintain that leadership level in your organization or a style where the people come first, they're humans rather than numbers, like you said, which I believe is a human right to be treated that way. They are going to be far more loyal and far less likely to do what the corporation is worried about them doing in the first place. Um, your retention level is going to go through the roof. Your engagement level is going to go through the roof. Um, I saw amazing statistics coming out of COVID in 2022. It just blew my mind, and it found that literally only 12% of people surveyed said that they were actually, and this is them admitting it to the poll or the people conducting the survey. Only 12% of people admitted or said that they were engaged at work 80% of the time. That is such a tiny fraction of a number. Like, and then as you go further down their findings, the majority said that they were only engaged at work about 20% of their workday, and the rest of the time they were on social media, they were in the bathroom, they were, talking to someone, just goofing off basically. whenever you develop that personal touch with your employees, with your team members, you're going that number is going to reverse because they become driven to serve you the way you serve them, and they don't want to let you down. And so when we look at employee engagement and the level of the and that people are engaging with their companies now, like it's insane. So I love what that you brought that up earlier. You really have to treat people like they're human beings. Like that is their right to be treated that way. And if you treat them otherwise, then you've gotten too big, and you need to reassess your situation and start empowering your lower level to really lead and inspire.
Yeah, definitely. I think even in larger companies that when it comes to leadership levels, if you can influence your team, you can create a subculture within your own team. Even
Mhm.
if the larger organization is, let's say, harder to manage or they have their own, let's say, expectations of a team. I feel that the truly powerful leaders, the bolder leaders, are the ones that have that strong work ethic. As you said, they prioritize personal development so that they can help take care of their team's development and respect their team's development, and also acknowledge that I need to take time for my own work ethic so that yes we can get the results, but also make sure that the team doesn't burn out and make sure that the team is inspired to work towards the same goal. So I think when it comes to being a leader, and correct me if this is something you don't agree with, but I think that the strong leaders or strong leadership can create a subculture in a company, and it can cause resistance because let's say you're trying to change how the overall leadership style in the bigger company is or how it works, and it's almost like throwing a spanner in the works of how the company is not growing, and you're trying to change how people have been thinking or have been trained to think who've been working for that company long term, and you want them to start focusing on their own personal development and not focusing on the numbers, not focusing on the money, and not focusing on just getting through the 8 or 9 hours that day. uh, do you think that that powerful leadership comes from, as you said, that personal development, that emphasis on personal development and maybe self awareness as a leader before you can influence your team?
Absolutely. So I mean, so first of all, something you said just made me think of this, and that is, when I started my own company, I had several coaches, and one of my coaches told me, Stephen, if you focus on the money, if you chase the money, you'll never catch it. But if you focus on the people, the money's just going to come. And I focus on people and how you interact with people and enrich other people's lives, whether it's your client or your employees, whatever, that's going to come to you. So focus on people, always focus on people. And that has paid off in dividends for me. As far as building a subculture, in my opinion, you want that, right? Because that, when you say you're at the lowest level of leadership within the organization and you have a 5 or 10 member team that you lead, yeah, you are going to create a subculture, and that what comes with that is pride, right? They're going to be proud of their little team, and they're going to challenge all the other teams around them. And in the military, that is huge, 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 and to the point where we have team competitions, um, because that is such a big part of what we do. And so I would encourage any leader to really develop, hone in on and develop on that subculture. As far as the personal development piece, absolutely. You can't influence others until you can influence yourself, right? Like you can't lead others until you can lead yourself. That's the first thing you have to learn to do. And so when it comes to your personal development, you really need to be able to sit down and read a book for an hour a day. You need to be able to sit down and meditate for an hour every day. You need to go to the gym for an hour every day. You need to have a solid, steady morning routine, and you need to be disciplined and stick to that routine because that is what is going to build that character and build those positive habits. You can't help, you can't, in the US, we have a saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? So, I mean, you can't even lead the horse unless you can lead yourself, right? So, we're not even guaranteed that we're going to be able to get these people, influence these people to do what we want them to do, but we sure as heck aren't going to be able to do it if we don't do it ourselves. If that made sense. I hope that made sense. I feel like that made sense.
Yeah, no, it did make sense, but I think one area where leaders or managers can cross the line is they're trying to influence or they're trying to help to lead by example. And as a result, they end up micromanaging their team. And that can have a very negative effect on the relationship. Instead of commanding authority or respect within the team, they take ownership away. So let's say they delegate a task, and next thing they see, oh, the task isn't being completed within the time schedule I want it to be, or maybe I'm not seeing the results that I want to see. And rather than communicating directly with the team, they overstep that boundary and give their own input. And that causes a lot more friction and tension within the team because as soon as you take that responsibility or take that ownership away from the team member that you delegated that responsibility, they're just going to step back and be like, oh, well, if he or she's going to do it, then what's the point in me making an effort?
Right.
If I can't take ownership or give my personal touch to this project, then okay, let them do it. Why did they delegate me in the first place? And I feel that's where some people feel as a manager, okay, maybe I need to influence the team more and give a bit more of my input to show them how it should be done, rather than giving them room to develop. Yes, they may make a few mistakes, but we can learn from there and communicate.
Mm-hmm. See, I don't know. I don't consider that influence though. Whenever it comes to what you're describing to me, that I don't even know what word I would assign to that, but I don't. To me, that's not influence.
But I feel it's
Influence,
mistaken for influence. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
somewhere in their mind they think that they're influencing or inspiring their team on how things should be done, and that's the kind of delusion that's going on in their heads. It's like, okay, if I just show them how they should be doing it, then they'll follow my lead.
That I agree with. That 100% agree with that. And the problem with it is, well, so the like you said, they take away the ownership, but more importantly, you take away their development, right? So, and it depends. It depends on the task, you know. Um, if someone's life is in danger, yes, I'm going to be very involved. And that's just obviously, hopefully, the company you work at, that's not a big deal. You know, people's lives aren't in danger, but you know, on the scale of oh crap to me, you know, if it's a huge deal where everything needs to go perfectly, then my involvement level is going to be higher. Um, if it is just a daily task, I'm not involved at all. But at some point, you have to hand over the reins to your team. That you have to be able to trust as a leader that they're going to do X, Y, and Z while you're focused on the big picture. And that's, you know, I'm sorry to reference everything to the military, but That is exactly, I mean, that's been 16 years of my life. So that's really all the cool stories I got are military stories. But um, as a team leader in the military, you're focused on the mission and you're trusting your team to do the small things within that mission to get to mission success. So yes, you are watching them and ensuring that the things are happening that need to happen, but ultimately you have to trust them. And whenever you take away someone's ownership, you're doing more than just taking away their ownership. You're taking away their ability to learn. You're taking away their personal development. Because I don't know about you, Eugene, but I've learned more from the mistakes I make than I ever will from being told or from watching someone do something. A lot of times when someone's trying to teach me something, I have them show me once and then let me try to do it myself and screw it all up because I'm going to learn more from that than I ever will. I can sit there and watch you code a computer or on a computer for an hour for hours, but until I actually get in there and do it and make mistakes that I have to go back and fix and all, just the monotony of that, I'm going to learn so much more from that. So when you take away people's ownership, you're taking away their ability to learn. And people aren't going to admit it. I don't even think people realize it, but personal development it's is in our DNA to advance and learn and grow. That's what we want at our very core. And when you take that away from people, you're wounding them literally to their core.
Yeah, and I think what you covered there, instead of micromanaging, that you just communicate better with your team. If this is something that you feel that okay, they need more supervision on, instead of telling them that you're delegating them the full task and full responsibility, you say, "Hey, I want you to work with me on this." If you're not 100% confident in your team members' ability in completing the task, rather than telling them it's theirs and then micromanaging them on the task, take them on and be like, hey, I feel that this would be a particular task that I want you to be confident in. But for the first 6 weeks, let's work on this together. And then you eventually hand over the reins, but make it very clear that, look, I don't want you to be afraid to approach me if you feel that you've made a mistake and then you try cover it up, it's going to be worse down the line. I'd rather you let me know and we'll work on this together. And that's where I feel like communication is key. If you don't have that line of communication, that you don't have that trust and that level of kind of that personal touch with your team members, it's very hard to be either a leader or a manager to them.
Right.
And it's very hard to gain that respect if you can't communicate with them and be that vulnerable with them as well, being like, look, I make mistakes on a daily basis, but
Mhm.
that's how we work, that's how we improve, that's how we develop. Uh, coming from a trying to portray yourself as the infallible leader who should not be questioned is not going to command a lot of respect from your team, and I feel that that people can't come from that point of vulnerability. And I feel maybe it's been a very common problem for men in the workplace as well, that they don't allow themselves to be vulnerable and they try to command more respect with their alpha male mentality and trying to command authority from that pedestal. Um, or maybe that's a point for another day. Maybe I'm just ranting on it, but I feel that's where it's coming from. It's that leadership mentality that I feel
I
that, that's where it originates, and maybe that's something that we need to weed out of the workplace, we out of the leadership culture in the workplace.
uh I mean, you cut me to the quick X. So I'm very much alpha. Like I am a type A alpha personality. Um, I don't think being vulnerable goes against that nature at all. I think I can be a type A alpha personality like crazy. I can be intense. I think my humility is one of the strongest characteristics I have. My ability to say that I messed up and be vulnerable. Um, I think the stronger I'll say it this way. If you have someone that is just showing that type A aggression or alpha, like I never make a mistake, I'm infallible, yada yada yada. If they're showing that, I don't think they're a type A at all or an alpha at all because they aren't comfortable enough in who they are to, yeah, I screwed up. I'm sorry. I'm human too. So I mean, really hone in on if you're listening and you struggle with that, you really need to work on that and develop that within yourself of humility, because humility is going to lead far better than being that aggressive alpha ever will. Because people relate to humility. People love humility. When we look at famous leaders of the past, Mahatma Gandhi, you know, one of the most humble people in the world, right? Mother Teresa, one of the most humble people ever. Those are the leaders that we really resonate with, and those are the leaders that you should be aspiring to be. Is just how can you humble yourself today, right? And I think that you kind of touched on a big point there. Um, man, you got to be I've written a lot about it in the past couple of months. You got to be vulnerable. You got to be humble. And it's funny because I actually wrote a pretty long article about being a vulnerable leader, and I got lit up whenever I on LinkedIn, I think it was for my article, because everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people were saying like I can't do that in my workplace because if I do that, they're going to sense blood and I'm going to be attacked. And I just pointed out like if that's your work culture, then you either need to change the work culture, and if you can't change that culture, you need to go find a new culture, because that's not a healthy work environment at all. Like that environment is not going to benefit you in any way. And the paycheck isn't worth the damage it's going to cause. Go find a new place, go find a new environment where you are allowed to that vulnerability and allowed to grow.
And I know for at least one person listening to this, that's really going to hit home.
I hope so, because that's so important. Um, and you got to be able to grow. You got to be able to make. You got to be in an environment free to make mistakes, to grow. If you're not, it's like, have you ever watched a plant try to grow in packed soil? It doesn't work too well, does it? If the soil is just so compact around the seed that it has no room to grow, it's just going to die. It's going to suffocate. When you plant a seed, it has to be in loose soil, and humans are no different. We have to be, we can't be packed. We got to be loose so that we have that room to grow and learn. By no stretch of the imagination am I a infallible person. I make more mistakes, admittedly, probably than most people do, but that's also because I'm not scared to make mistakes, man. People are like, you think that's a good idea? Meh, let's find out, right? Like, well, I think it's a good idea. Let's try it, and if it bites me in the butt, I'll take responsibility for it. So I mean, I'm not scared. Like, let's do it. And I feel like the more people that are in an environment where they can have that mentality safely, the one, they're going to take more risks, and the more, man, your company is going to thrive the more people take risks. Like, yeah, it's going to hurt you a little bit, but when you land that 360 jump, like it's going to boom for your company. And you're only going to do that by letting your people take risks. I'm sorry, I'm ranting now.
No, and even in that, by letting them take risks, they're going to be better at calculating risks. And
Mm-hmm.
as
Yeah.
they improve, the risks they take will be less risky because it will be a calculated risk. It's like, okay, given the previous data from our mistakes and our failures,
Yep.
we don't go as aggressively with this. And we, let's say, make smaller steps towards that change instead, because we have a greater chance of success and not overwhelming ourselves. And
Right.
uh, maybe having a better uh, analysis of how things progress as well over time. Rather than taking big uncalculated risks, we can take smaller calculated ones and progress towards that change. And you have to give people that ownership, to take on to that give them that responsibility in their duties, because I feel let's say the manager who tries to take on the whole workload and all the responsibility themselves and not actually give their team responsibility and delegate more responsibility to the team than to themselves. I feel that's where a lot of management styles fail. I think that's where managers burn out. They're again, it comes back to their own self-development. They're not taking the time to focus on their own mental, emotional, and physical fitness. And as a result, they burn out. They can't serve their team.
Well,
So
on top of that, Eugene, if you're leading rather than managing, your team isn't going to let you burn out because they're going to recognize far before you will that you're burning out, and they're going to step in to try to help relieve your workload or at least make you realize that you're burning out. And I've had that happen with me several times of where people, whether it was either my inner circle or my team itself, step in and be like, yo, Steven, like, you need to take a step back for a couple of days, man, and relax because you're about to flame out hard. And when your team, when you've created that relationship with your team, it's going to, a lot of these things you're talking about become impossible. Excuse me, because someone in the team is going to recognize it and they're going to bring it to the whole team's attention, and then they're going to feel safe in addressing it and relinquishing you of the problem entirely because it doesn't benefit them. So I mean, it's yeah, like 100%. You gotta managing has a purpose, but managing is strictly numbers. It has nothing to do with the relationship. So if you don't work on building relationships every single day with your team members, you are just a manager. And that's how I differentiate the two. A manager deals with numbers, a leader deals with people.
I think that's very well put. I think that's where a lot of people confuse the two, but that's a very good, concise definition of leadership versus management.
Thank you. I put a lot of thought into it.
One thing I do want to touch on before we finish up is your emphasis on education, physical fitness, and work ethic. When it comes to education, what would be the best starting point? Maybe what's the first book you'd recommend to someone who wants to improve their leadership?
Oh man, I wasn't ready for that. Oh, what's it called? Hang on, it's by John Maxwell. It's like I think it's Leadership 2.0, Discovering the Leader Within 2.0 by John Maxwell.
Awesome.
Um, that is the first, and I might have the title a little messed up. Um, I'm sorry if I do. But yeah, it's a revised version of John Maxwell's original book. I think came out in the '90s, and it is one of the most insightful and impactful books that I've ever read in my life.
Awesome. That's brilliant. Brilliant. So that's the best place to start, John Maxwell.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. That
Brilliant.
dude, like his leadership insights are. I would say 90% of everything I've said are just my words on what John Maxwell has taught me.
That's brilliant. I think, again, as you said it was written back in the 90s, and
I think
I
so.
think that a lot of those traits have been forgotten in today's workplace.
I think so too. I definitely agree.
Awesome. So we need to get back to our roots.
Yeah, 100 always. If you don't know what to do, always go back to your roots.
So, Stephen, if anyone does want to hear more from you or get in contact with you and maybe listen in on the Renowned Leadership podcast, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Just go to my website. It's renowned, RENOWNED leadership.com. Again, renowned leadership.com. And from there, you can contact me. I got to just click on the contact button. It'll email directly to me, and I always respond. Or you can click talk to a coach and request me. And I got several coaches on there that you can talk to, but you can request specifically to talk to me. And of course, got a podcast tab. Hit on that. You get to listen to all my podcasts. I talk to some pretty awesome people, so very insightful people. So I highly recommend that as well.
Awesome. Brilliant. Stephen, thank you so much for your time. It's probably about 4:30 a.m. for you right now.
Absolutely, 100%.
so, so what a way to start your day. Awesome.
Time to go for a run.